Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
After nearly 50 years, the long-standing mystery of the Lady of the Dunes case has been solved. The victim, previously unidentified and known only as the Lady of the Dunes, was finally identified in October 2022 as 37-year-old Ruth Marie Terry, when genetic genealogy testing was performed on her jaw at the Othram Forensics Lab. Ruth Marie Terry had been the oldest unidentified homicide victim in Massachusetts, despite years of efforts to identify her and her killer, which included exhuming her remains, creating clay model facial reconstructions, and releasing age regression drawings of her face. Ruth Marie Terry was born in Whitwell, Tennessee in 1936. After a short-lived marriage, she moved to Michigan to work at an automotive plant in 1957. In 1958, she gave birth to her son Richard, but due to financial difficulties, she allowed her workplace superintendent Richard Hanchett Sr. to adopt him in exchange for covering her expenses. Following this, she relocated to California. In 1972, Ruth reached out to her son, but he couldn't meet her due to a drug overdose that left him in a coma for 18 days. On February 16, 1974, she married Guy Rockwell Moldovan, an antiques dealer in Reno, Nevada. 4 months before her death, they visited her family in Whitwell, and her family noticed changes in her behavior when she was with Moldovan, who exhibited possessive tendencies. The couple then went to Chattanooga to visit Terry's half-brother Kenneth and his wife Carol and mentioned plans to travel the U.S. to search for antiques. They also talked about returning to Massachusetts as they were leaving. In the late summer of 1974, Moldovan returned to Tennessee and informed Terry's family that she had gone missing from their California home. He stayed briefly and simply claimed not to know Terry's whereabouts. Terry's brother James traveled to California and hired a private investigator to locate her. The investigator reported that all of her belongings had been sold and she had seemingly left the state willingly, possibly joining a religious cult. For 2 decades before her identification, Terry was listed as deceased in family obituaries. Carol speculated that she might be in a witness protection program, preventing her from contacting her family. On July 26, 1974, a 12-year-old girl discovered her decomposing body in the Race Point Dunes of Provincetown, Massachusetts. Her remains were located just yards away from a road and showed significant insect activity. Footprints led to the body, and tire tracks were found nearby, suggesting she had died about 2 weeks before. She was found lying face down on half of a beach blanket and showed no signs of struggle. Police speculated that she either knew her killer or had been asleep when she died. Items found near her included a blue bandana and a pair of Wrangler jeans under her head. She had long auburn or red hair tied back in a ponytail with a gold-flecked elastic band, and her toenails were painted pink. She had costly dental work, including crowns valued between $5,000 and $10,000. Several of her teeth had been removed. Strangely, both hands and one forearm were missing. She had suffered a severe head injury, possibly from strangulation, which was the cause of her death. One side of her head had been crushed, likely with a military-type entrenching tool. Signs of sexual assault were also present, likely occurring post-mortem. Some investigators believed that the absence of teeth, hands, and a forearm might indicate an attempt by the killer to conceal either the victim's identity or their own. On August 28, 2023, Cape and Islands District Attorney Robert Galabois announced that Guy Rockwell Moldovan, who had married Ruth Marie Terry just a few months before her disappearance, has now been identified as her killer. Additional information regarding the breakthrough in the investigation was not disclosed, as DA Galabois only confirmed the closure of one of the state's most notorious cold cases. In his statement, it was explained that, as a result of the investigation into Ms. Terry's death, it was concluded that Mr. Moldovan was responsible for her demise in 1974. Guy Rockwell Moldovan, also known by several aliases, had a troubled history. Born on October 27, 1923, he was an orphan adopted by Abram Albert Zadwaransky Moldovan and Sylvia Lily Silverblatt. He had a brother named Michael Semyon J. Moldovan. In 1942, he lived in Manhattan, New York, and attended the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. On May 11, 1946, he married Joellen May Loop in Bellevue, Pennsylvania, but they divorced on July 16, 1956. He later married Manzanita Aileen Manzi Ryan on September 30, 1958, in Kootenai, Idaho. She had a daughter named Dolores Ann Mearns from a previous marriage. Moldovan's second wife Manzanita and her daughter Dolores Ann Mearns disappeared in Seattle, Washington, on April Fool's Day in 1960. Moldovan became the prime suspect in their disappearance but was not charged with murder due to the lack of concrete evidence. In 1961, he was convicted of larceny for swindling his third wife's family out of $10,000 around the time of his second wife's disappearance. His sentence was suspended in March 1962 on the condition that he repay the money. True crime writer and Rule discussed Moldovan in her 2007 book Smoke, Mirrors, and Murder in connection with the disappearance of his second wife and stepdaughter. Investigators found dismembered human body parts in his septic tank but couldn't confirm their identity. He later married someone named Terry in February 1974 in Reno, Nevada. Moldovan was also a prime suspect in the June 1950 murder of Henry Lawrence Red Baird and the disappearance of his girlfriend, Barbara Jo Kelly. They went missing in Humboldt County, California, and Moldovan had connections to the area. However, he was not charged in connection with these cases. Around 1976, Moldovan moved to Chueller, California, and retired from his job as an executive vice president of a silver store in Beverly Hills. He worked at the radio station Kazoo in Pacific Grove and a tobacco shop in Carmel. In 2002, Guy Rockwell Moldovan died at his home in Salinas, California, of a lengthy illness. He was survived by his wife Phyllis Moldovan and his sister Joan Towers of Salinas,